Aldrin Control Center. News Radio. 1110 KFAB.
September 12th, 1962, John Kennedy was our president. He was speaking at Rice University. He was speaking about going to the moon.
There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
And less than 7 years later, we did go to the moon. And one of those who walked on the moon is our guest in a moment, Buzz Aldrin on Coast to Coast AM. For 5 years now, gold investments have outperformed the stock market, and this year is no different. Right now, gold is up 15% on the year, and, you know, after we've had a major correction, it's still strong. Experts say that bigger gains are ahead with that percent. One very well-known expert, his name is James Turk, says inflation will rise, the dollar will get weaker. His prediction is for gold to hit $2,000 an ounce within the next 12 to 18 months. That means, with gold currently trading at these prices, you may never have a better chance to profit from gold. What do you do about it? Well, if you'd like to increase your investment returns in these uncertain times, do what I did some time ago. I simply called Lear Financial. Here's the number, 1-800-474-4259, and ask them for the free gold investor guide. They'll get it right out to you. This is worth a lot of money in paid subscriptions and special reports, and see why the experts say that gold will continue to go up. Protect and grow your savings and retirement accounts, and just get the free information. 1-800-474-4259. That's 1-800-474-4259. You know, a recent study found that dogs help relieve cardiovascular stress in people who've had difficulty controlling their temper. Well, I don't have a temper, and my dog Diamond kind of calms me down in my St. Louis days. How about you? Well, big news also for you. Purina One Total Nutrition formulas have been reformulated to be more of what you look for in a dog food. Each formula is now made with 2 kibble shapes to give your dog more variety at mealtime. Choose real lamb, real beef, real chicken as the first ingredient. Each is formulated to deliver all 6 signs of pet health, including the immune system and digestive health, just to name a few. Try Purina One and see the healthy difference in the food and your dog. Take the Purina One 30-day challenge by calling 1-866-559-PETS. That's 866-559-PETS for a free 4-pound bag of the Purina One. That's right, for your puppy, adult, or senior dog. Or go to their website at PurinaOneChallenge.com. Aldrin was educated at West Point, graduating with honors in 1951. Third in his class, Buzz flew Sabre jets in 66 combat missions in the Korean conflict. Returning to his education, he earned a doctorate in astronautics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Manned Space Rendezvous. In 1963, Buzz was selected by NASA as one of the early astronauts. He has logged 450 hours of flying time, 29 of which were in space. And then on July 20th, 1969, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong made their historic Apollo 11 moonwalk, thus becoming the first two humans to set foot on another world. This unprecedented heroic endeavor was witnessed by the largest worldwide television audience in history. And I'm proud to say I saw that too. Buzz Aldrin on Coast to Coast. Buzz, it is a delight having you on the program, sir. How are you?
I'm very fine here in the southern coast of France and Saint-Tropez. It's just beautiful here.
I had heard that you got the name Buzz because your sister couldn't pronounce brother when you were a kid. Is that true?
That's the way I understand it. That's the way they keep telling it to me, yeah.
And then you legally changed your name to Buzz, right?
That's correct. I guess maybe 20 years ago, probably. But it takes time to catch up to all you journalists.
Buzz, I've got to ask you, whenever you look up at a full moon, do you sometimes pinch yourself and say, I was there? I mean, what's the feeling like?
Well, I guess I coined the phrase afterward that before we went there, it was a stranger, but it's a friend now. That's kind of, it's manufactured after the fact, and that really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's not too habitable a spot either. It's going to be difficult for people to go and live there for a long period of time. And I understand all these technical things about it, but I guess I'm still enthused whenever I look up there and realize that, by golly, I have actually been to that place. Now, it's not as clear as it used to be. I have a little astigmatism. But, we all have to live with growing a little bit older and having a few aches and pains and popping a few more pills than maybe we used to. But it's really amazing that there's still 18 of us still alive of the 24 people who reached the moon in support of those 6 landings.
And all heroes. When you were on the moon with Neil, and you two were bouncing around there, I mean, it had to have been such an incredible feeling. You're looking at planet Earth. You're on the moon, desolate. I mean, what kind of a feeling was there, Buzz?
Well, you got one of the 2 words. I just put 2 words together that seem to describe the event to me: magnificent desolation. And Tom Hanks has used those words now in his latest 3D IMAX portrayal of the 6 missions that went to the moon, and what the guys did. And he put it in a perspective of young kids kind of asking a few questions and being asked questions and coming up with childlike answers. And then right near the end, one of those girls who was asked questions turns out to be the base commander of a rather extensive base on the moon. Now, that's, I think, really a wonderful setting for an outstanding portrayal of the achievements of getting there on the moon. I just feel that that's outstanding. I'm not sure that it reflects the reality of an expanding human base. My vote would be that we would have an expanding colony on the surface of Mars for a number of reasons. It's much more habitable there. The resources that are there at Mars are much more capable of supporting sustained human activities. It takes a long time to get to Mars, and you need to gradually build up. You can't bring everybody back on a return trip, so other people have to stay there. I just vote for a growing habitation on Mars, and I think we really have to commit to that before we start spending a lot of money directed toward specifically Mars. I think we're doing the absolute right thing now in setting our objectives, as Kennedy did back in 1961. Really, it was the first time he said we're going to go to the moon. That was May 25th. Yuri Gagarin had flown once around the Earth,
right.
And Alan Shepard did going up and down, just 15 minutes in flight. So to look back on those historic times is really quite a privilege for all of us. 12 walked on the moon, and 9 of us are still alive. And I'm trying to bring those people together in Apollo Lunar Ambassador reunions.
Oh, that would be a great reunion. I've got to say, are you disappointed that we stopped going to the moon and the program just seemed to end?
Well, my participation in it ended. All 3 of us, Neil, Mike, and I, decided that being so privileged to be on that first landing that we just would forego the opportunity to stay in the crew rotation cycle, and we move on to other things. And we all did that so that other people could have their chance to get to the moon. Neil went into aeronautics at NASA headquarters. Mike worked for the State Department for a while. I had hoped that my return to the Air Force, the first astronaut to do so, would be as an assignment commandant of cadets at the Air Force Academy. That's kind of an assignment that would allow me to ease back into the service after being away for 11 years out of 20 years. But that wasn't to be. They asked me to command the test pilot school, which was unusual because not only had I been away from the service for a good while, but I'd never had any test pilot training. I eased my way into the astronaut program by the academic achievements at MIT.
Buzz, I was reading in a documentary that you're going to be in that it was pretty touch and go trying to take off from the surface of the moon. There was some kind of broken circuit breaker, and you had to use a pen in order to really punch it and ignite the LEM. Is that what happened?
Well, we have rows and rows of circuit breakers, and we use them to protect a circuit from being electrified early when it wasn't really needed. So we sort of have a double protection. Most aircraft do that. If we're not using something, let's say you're flying cross-country in a fighter airplane and you're not going to be using the guns or rockets, you pull the circuit breakers on that so that just in case something might jam or might fire if you happen to have ammunition aboard. So a lot of circuit breakers were pulled, and evidently when Neil and I got back in again and then sort of moving around to take those backpacks off in confined quarters so that we could depressurize again and toss those overboard to save weight for liftoff. We really put all of those kind of things into the flight plan to give us that extra assurance that we'd have enough fuel to more than get back into orbit. Evidently, in doing that, I had knocked up against some of the circuit breakers because when we finally got ready to try and sleep, I chose the most likely spot, got my firsties in there, and that was to lie down on the floor. But as I got ready to do that, I noticed that amongst some of the lunar dust on the floor, on the edge, was a broken off circuit breaker.
Oh, no.
The top of it. So I thought, well, this might be the lighting circuit breaker or something else. But I looked up there, and it was the engine arm circuit breaker.
Oh, no.
So we reported that to Houston, and then those guys were up for the next 6 hours trying to figure out how to get around that circuit. If in some eventuality, when the time came to arm that circuit, that it didn't stay armed or something like that. So they finally concluded that instead of waiting until 5 minutes before liftoff to push it in, we'd do that about 2 or 3 hours after we got up, which is what we did. And of course, not wanting to maybe apply any metal to that, I chose a pen that we were using that had a felt tip on it, so that it wouldn't
short out.
And when I pushed it in, of course, it stayed in, so I didn't have to act like the little Dutch boy and hold my finger
while you were leaving the moon.
Right.
I have been just always interested in extraterrestrial life, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I had heard that someone was saying that you had seen a UFO. NASA said, don't say anything about it, and we might as well get it from the horse's mouth, Buzz. Did you see anything unusual up there?
Well, a guy by the name of Charles Berlitz wrote something about the Roswell incident, and to establish his credibility, he had a little table in the front of his book which attempted to take advantage of alleged observations of people, of unusual sightings, and he specifically referred to India TV's reported this, that had been cited by somebody else, that Neil and I saw some green things, green creatures. Well, this kind of spoiled my credibility and a lot of other people, so I decided to take him to court and sue him, because he was repeating phrases that were inaccurate, if not done the right kind of, we won the suit. And I, hopefully it would cause a few people to be a little bit more careful in how they try and treat trusted servants of our government and of our people to tell the truth. I just feel that it's a little irresponsible of people to, especially after so many years, to bring up subjects that have been explained rather thoroughly, especially in our case in debriefings. I happen to see some flashes at night. We're trying to go to sleep, and it turned out that these are high velocity, ultra high velocity Z particles. That I thought what I was seeing was the particles penetrating the cabin when the lights were out.
Right.
But it turned out that wasn't the case. The next mission that went up there could see them with their eyes shut, which meant that they were impacting the fluid in the eyeballs themselves and making an impact on the retina of the eye.
So darn, you and Neil didn't see any spacecraft on the moon after all.
Any spacecraft? No, just ours. Just ours.
That's what I thought.
It was magnificent desolation.
Do you believe, I know Edgar Mitchell, I've talked to him on the program before, he believes that there is extraterrestrial life out there somewhere.
I don't think that's so amazing when you consider the size of our galaxy, 100,000 light years across in diameter, and ours is but one of billions of other galaxies, and they're separated by at least 20, 50 times the diameter of our swirling Milky Way galaxy. Each one is separated by quite a distance. To talk about intergalactic travel, when we understand the laws of physics as enunciated by Einstein and verified by most everyone else credible, the speed of light is just not something that creatures the size of human beings inside of spacecraft that are housing them, the speed of light is just not going to be exceeded. It is a barrier that causes time to change.
Yeah.
It causes the mass of things to grow to essentially infinity, and it is just not going to be possible. But within the limits of perception, of identification, there certainly will be an understanding that habitable conditions exist throughout our galaxy and throughout the universe. And among all of those habitable conditions, maybe 1 in a million, maybe 1 in a billion, will have the conditions that will allow creatures to move around, exchange communication with each other, pick up pieces of wood or something and rub them together and cause fire, dig down into the soil or material and melt some of that stuff into wires and put those wires and metal and aluminum and all that stuff together and make a spacecraft and ignite it with a rocket and send it from one place to another. That's intelligence.
Yeah, sure.
First, it's intelligence to communicate with great artistic creations of renditions of art and of writings. So there's bound to be intelligence, but most rare among the habitable creatures out there. Now, that's just a guess on my part, but it's a guess I think that is pretty well substantiated. When I grew up, we did not have evidence that the sun was a nuclear reaction converting hydrogen into helium.
True.
And that was the source of the energy. We did not know that there were other galaxies beyond the stars that we could perceive.
And we're finding new planets now. We didn't even know that then, outside of the solar system.
I guess it's several hundred now that we've identified, but most of them are quite big from our deductions because of the motion of the parent star.
Buzz,
gives us a clue.
We're running out of time, and I know you have to go. First of all, I want to thank you for your service to this country on behalf of everybody listening to this program. We just adore you and what you've done. And even though you're 76, if they asked you to go up again, would you do it?
Well, our present president, in his first term, during an election year, proposed a plan called the Vision for Space Exploration that commits us to completing the space station and the remaining flights of the orbiter before we retire it, while at the same time we develop the spacecraft to be able to return to the moon and then go on to Mars and beyond. And that's a plan, and I think it's a very bold plan. Now, exactly how we implement that, there are a lot of details, and as people say, the devil is in the details.
Yeah. Would you go, Buzz? Would you go?
We're going to do it. Well, nobody's going to ask me to go at my age.
All right. Hey, Buzz, we're out of time. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you being
very, very welcome.
We love you. Buzz Aldrin was on the moon a long time ago. I'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Don't cut your dial.
USA4PBA or visit PBA.org.
Right after Russ, you've got the Tom Becker Show. That's me. Join me 2 to 6. I do a news radio at 10 KFAB. Well,
a.m. with George Noory.
A friend of mine used to do some work with NASA, and he was telling me this weekend, this is an incredible story, that during the big push to beat the Soviets to the moon, putting the man on the moon when the competition was very heated, we had a program, a very confidential program called Pilgrim. That's what it was called. The code name was Pioneer, but the real name of the program was called Pilgrim. And he said that in order to beat the Russians to the moon, the plan was to send a man to the moon, but he wasn't coming back. He'd probably lived there a year or two, and then he'd pass on. He'd die on the moon, and they would drop ship, food and supplies to him on a regular basis. His job was merely to get on the moon and then just kind of stay there. And, he'd do a few little things getting ready for an eventual real manned mission there to the moon, but that was the plan. He apparently said that they had a volunteer. He did not know who the person was, but that this individual was prepared to go and stay on the moon and die on the moon and would have been the first man on the moon. Once the Soviets decided they weren't going to push for a man on the moon program, we backed off this Pilgrim program, which absolutely was amazing. In a moment, more amazing things with Richard C. Hoagland on Coast to Coast AM. I bet there's someplace in your home where you leave the light on. Maybe it's in the kitchen, the bedroom, or near the front door. And no matter where it is, if you've got a light that you like to leave on, Sea-Crane's got the perfect bulb for you. It's their CC Vivid LED light bulb. That's right. It's an LED light bulb. That means no filament to break, no halogen to overheat, and no fragile glass. The CC Vivid lasts over 60,000 hours. That's 60 times longer than an ordinary bulb. And at 24 hours of use per day for 1 year, the energy cost is less than $3. Regular bulbs cost up to $60 when used the same way. Whoever thought a light bulb could save over 90%? Sea-Crane did, and that's why they're the first company in America to carry a full line of LED light bulbs for your home. LED light bulbs are safe, energy efficient, they're durable. Use them as reading and accent lights, or simply to save money while keeping that favorite light on all night long. To order the CC Vivid LED light bulb for $34.95, click on ccradio.com or call them at 1-800-522-8863. That's 1-800-522-8863.
Denny's works for me after a late night out because it's like open. And unlike drive-thru food, it's, good. And they got that new Extreme Grand Slam, just $5.99. 3 strips of bacon, 3 sausage links, 3 ways to stay delish. And it's not food in a bag. Planted it through a window. Please drive through. Bossy. Denny's late night, 24/7. Works for me.
Price, participation, and hours may vary for limited time only.
Real people are sharing their good news about a leave.
My name is Art Bivens, and this is my story. I have a folk group called Cool Old Dude. As I was going over a Kilcara mountain, I have arthritis in my fingers. It makes it very hard to press down on the strings. Our bass player said, "Man, you got to try some lead." Just to shut Eric up, I tried the lead, and he was right. I'm back in the game. I can play guitar again.
Real people, real stories, real good news. Share your good news at EliteGoodNews.com. Use as directed for minor arthritis pain.
Well, Richard C. Hoagland, you know who he is, former Space Science Museum curator, a former NASA consultant during the historic Apollo missions to the moon, was science advisor to Walter Cronkite and CBS News, and for the last 19 years, Richard has been leading an outside scientific team in a critically acclaimed independent analysis of possibly intelligently designed artifacts on Mars. In the last several years, he and his team's investigations have been quietly extended to include more than 30 years of previously hidden data from NASA, Soviet then, and Pentagon missions to the moon. I invite all of you to go to his website, enterprisemission.com, where he has posted some new data for us all to look at. He is our full guest now on Coast to Coast AM. Hello, Richard C. How are you?
Good morning, George.
Good to talk with you. Hey, what did you think of Buzz, 76-year-old Buzz Aldrin?
It was such a blast from the past. It's kind of one of those things where you remember where you were when certain very major historic events happened.
Yes.
Like we all remember where we were when we heard that John Kennedy was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I'm going to remember to my dying day where I was when Neil and Buzz landed on the moon because I was, in California in the North American aviation plant, which had built the Apollo and the service modules, standing with Robert Heinlein looking out this incredible, huge hangar door out toward the Pacific Ocean at a crescent moon hanging over the Pacific, while I'm watching in a corner of this huge hangar a live picture from the moon by way of Australia and the Parkes radio antenna that we're going to talk about a bit later. And I can see them walking around while we're standing there looking out into the moonlight at the actual lunar surface a 250,000 miles away. It's one of those things you never forget, and Buzz's half hour, all too brief, brought it all back.
You know what? And I think he's being as honest and forthright as he can about just about everything he talked about.
Oh, I think so too. And remember when I talk about this cover-up that we have now discovered, and we have absolutely incontrovertible evidence that the moon that we thought we knew is not the moon that we know, I really exempt the guys who went, because remember, they are following what they perceive to be, if they perceive them to be, and I'll get to that in a second, lawful orders. They're all military officers. If they are commanded by their commander-in-chief not to discuss what they saw, I'm not talking UFOs and stuff like that, I'm talking ruins, we can actually point to the charter, to the NASA charter, where on matters of national security, those decisions are taken away from NASA and the employees of NASA, and they are legally vested by virtue of the Constitution and the Supreme Court with a higher authority, which is the commander-in-chief and the Oval Office. As Truman said, the buck stops there. So, if you had really directly, pointedly asked him a very blunt question, Buzz, were there other things on the moon that are not, natural? I would have been intrigued to hear how he would have answered or not answered. But the UFO thing in my mind, particularly the stories about them seeing, big UFOs lined up on craters and all that, I think that has been the disinformation story for decades to prevent people from asking, well, what's really there? And what I have up on our website tonight is a sampling of some of the stunning official NASA photography showing absolutely astonishing things. Glass structures, ancient ruins built by somebody. And the only question that is before the House tonight is, and the location where Apollo 11 landed in the Sea of Tranquility, was any of that stuff visible, or was it over the horizon and they did not know what they landed amongst?
I don't know if you heard my intro to you while Tom was calling you, but
no.
All right, I'm going to tell you what it was. I was at an event this weekend, and a person who used to work with NASA, whom I trust, was telling me, and he said, please don't use my name. I promised him I wouldn't. You know what that's like. And he said, we had a program back in '62 called Pilgrim, that everybody called Pioneer, but the real name was Pilgrim, that was going to land a man on the moon. We would have been the first, but he wasn't coming back. And this, he said, was when we were really pushing with the Soviets, and we were trying to beat them. And then once they backed off, we killed that program. But the whole plan was to get this guy on the moon. There was no way to get him back. We were going to drop ship food and supplies to him on a regular basis. And he was going to set up these big balloons that, were insulated and had, some kind of shielding. And that's what he was going to do. And they figured he'd be alive for about a year or two before he passed on.
Okay, I heard about this at about the same time frame shortly before I joined CBS, which was in '68, so it was many years after '62, because Kennedy announced Apollo in May 25th, as Buzz very aptly remembered, of 1961, in a joint session, of the House and the Senate. I heard about this, but I heard it a little differently, that it was called the Pilgrim Project.
All right.
Okay, it was designed to send a Mercury capsule to the moon, which was the only spacecraft that we had at that time, but it would be a Mercury capsule modified to include a retro rocket and landing legs so that the astronaut could back down and land this thing on the lunar surface, kind of with beacons and looking through the periscope and all that. And the idea was that he would be resupplied from Earth with unmanned equipment, with kind of automated cargo delivery.
Yes.
And until the technology was created to bring him back, that he would basically live off the land and off this material that we sent until the spacecraft equivalent to the lunar module with an ascent stage could be landed in his vicinity, and then he would hike over to it, get in, power it up, and come home.
So that could be the case then.
Well, this was called, now Martin Caidin, who was a very famous space writer, actually wrote about this in a serialized fictional novel in the Saturday Evening Post of the era. And this was eventually turned into a hardcover book, which I have somewhere in my voluminous library. And I heard in years later when I, kind of got involved with NASA, that this had been a kind of a, we're thinking of this, but we're not really serious because the American people would never allow us to jeopardize a human life that way. So I don't know to this day whether it was a really bona fide leak of a real desperate 11th hour plan to scoop the Russians, or it was just one of those things, in the CIA and the intelligence agencies, they do all kinds of scenario playing. Well, NASA, of course, has done some of the same thing when the guy at the top says, give me all your ideas for how we can beat the Russians. And this may have been one of those wild, off-the-wall ideas. It actually has a lot of overtones of Bob Zubrin's plan to go to Mars.
Sure.
Where he talks about Mars Direct, where you basically launch your habitat, which contains power and food and water and oxygen and everything you need to live. You launch it to Mars first, you land it, you make sure it arrives safely and it's waiting for you, and then you send your human crews to rendezvous with it and then live off the supplies that you brought on that first mission. Well, that's kind of like what the Pilgrim Project, as I understood, was supposed to be. It was never supposed to strand the guy forever. The idea was that you pick a volunteer who could basically live alone for a year or two or 3 or 5.
Well, hopefully he'd live longer than you could get back and get him out of there, right?
Well, see, we've had people living in the Antarctic in incredible desolation, isolated for years, very similarly.
Yeah, that's
where
true.
They have bivouac materials and stockpiled caches of stuff, and they had to live off supplies that had been previously, put in place. So the idea itself, other than the fact that it was the moon, and you had to invent the technology to go and get him, was not that outrageous given the politics of the time. And I was fascinated that you somehow got onto that and brought it up.
And gosh, I'd love to talk to the guy. Apparently he's still alive, the volunteer, the one person that was going to go.
That would be a show.
Wouldn't that be something?
If you could find him and he was for real, that would be a hell of a show.
I wonder who he could be.
Well, we have a vast host audience. Somewhere out there, someone knows someone who knows someone, George.
Hey, I wanted to get your reaction. Did you happen to hear Stephen Greer on Art's program this weekend?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of that? It's specifically his talk about SETI hearing signals. Look, we talked to Seth Shostak. Seth says, absolutely not. And then, the old Seth, come on, you're a disinformation agent, aren't you? Come on, tell me. And he said, George, I am not. We haven't heard any signals. The only thing we've ever heard was that wow signal. He said, look, trust me, if we thought we heard extraterrestrial signals, we would blast it all over the place. What did you think of Greer's discussion that he had a couple sources that said that said he had heard something and also that their signals were getting blocked? It was kind of fascinating. He talked about it on June 1st with me as well, so he reiterated it with Art. But what did you think?
Well, I was kind of puzzled for several reasons. One is that if you can't go public with the names of your sources, that's the only information you have. Sources told me. You can't.
Well, you say that sometimes.
Yeah, but we have images that back up what the sources are telling us.
All right. Okay,
and some of them are right there on the web tonight for everyone to look at.
All right.
If you don't have other corroborating data, and you're making such an extraordinary claim, and you don't want to jeopardize the people who he keeps referring to high-level sources, well, SETI is a very small project. How many high-level sources can there be?
There's only one or two people who work there.
Exactly. So you're really putting those sources in danger, if only in their mind, if they don't want to go public in terms of embarrassment. So I couldn't quite understand Stephen, who I know quite well. I've had several dinners and gone to conferences, and we've talked over the years. I couldn't understand why, with Hellier in Canada, he would make this statement at a press conference and why he would reiterate it without adding any more to the story. And the thing that was most disappointing is he was unable to provide a band of, signals, that they were on 1400 megahertz, or, he wasn't able to say what size antenna would be required. In other words, he simply took this information, apparently at face value, never asked any technical questions that would allow him to independently, not divulging his sources, but independently perhaps move to get confirmation from some other agencies or talented amateurs who have very sophisticated equipment, as Art pointed out last night. And Art was kind of blown away. I mean, he was politically dumbfounded, and I kept hearing him over and over again say, "This is amazing, this is absolutely fantastic." And if it's true, of course it is, the question is it true? And from my information, I have no way of telling you one way or the other.
Well, okay, that's your way of saying no comment, I guess, huh?
It's not a no comment. I just gave you 5 minutes of comment. Bottom line is, we don't know. And until someone breaks cover and comes out and officially says, this is a signal, remember, I went through a very interesting experience with SETI signals with Art, many years ago, in terms of this potential signal found in Pegasus from an amateur in England, and got very involved and got very complicated, and there were lots of web postings, and it got extraordinarily Byzantine and almost, X-Files kind of stuff. But the bottom line is there was no ultimate corroboration that what we were seeing in various telescopes was in fact what had been claimed in England.
Well, I got into broadcasting because of my fascination with the unusual and ufology. I mean, and again, my history, but the Betty and Barney Hill story would just, it thrilled me, and I wanted to unravel some of these things. And Richard, so I've been at this since 1971. 69, I went into broadcasting as a copy boy, 19 years old. And yet we are no closer to getting the answer of whether, other than our guesses and how we feel, of whether we are being visited or not. And, here we are all these years later, the same great people that we all admire and love, Stanton Friedman, and I think Greer's done a good job doing what he's trying to do. Nobody yet has come forward with the real hard definitive proof. I mean, everybody was talking about Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada. Well, only a few people pointed out, and on this program, that he really didn't even see anything or didn't even know anything. He got all his information from Philip Corso's Day After Roswell book. He read that book and said, I guess this was going on during my time period.
Well, not having talked to him directly, and I haven't listened to Paula's interview with him, I don't really understand the logic chain that moved him from, okay, I'm defense minister, and I'm looking at all this terrestrial stuff, and then one day, after I'm retired, I kind of look at something else and think, oh, that was going on. Why did he throw himself into the pond? Why did he jump in feet first into this very controversial subject where there is, as you said, very little evidence that stands still? See, the difference between what we do at Enterprise and what the UFO people do is that we have evidence that absolutely stands still.
I was just going to say that, because sometimes as wild as your evidence is, and as crazy as it may seem, at least you present data, pictures, events, things for us to look at, things for us to digest. You don't get that on the other end.
And I think part of that is by design. If folks are visiting us, and I think the evidence that I've seen tips me in that direction, then the officials in this government, other governments on this planet, have done their best, their damnedest, to make sure that the field is so confused, so muddied, so turgid, such a turnoff for people who like, clear answers, that only the most, long-lived diehards who really are kind of, looking at the skies for salvation from things that are going on around the planet now, like what's going on in the Middle East, that someone may come and save us from outer space. Only those people really cling to the extraordinarily complicated and completely disingenuous field called ufology. And I say over and over again, Enterprise does not do UFOs. And I say that very specifically because when I was in the museum field back in Springfield, which you cited in your intro to me a few minutes ago, I had the occasion to actually visit and spend an entire night with Betty and Barney Hill. And I was able to debrief them. I was able to actually suggest to Betty Hill, I think I told you this on the show a few months ago, that I'm the one that suggested to her, 19, a curator at this museum in Springfield, a few hundred miles away, I suggested that she draw, under hypnosis, the star map that she allegedly saw as part of her abduction.
Which was the most amazing part of that entire case.
Because it was reproducible, and my hope was that if we did it under controlled conditions with Benjamin Simon, who was a world-class psychologist in Boston that she and Barney had gone to because of these very disturbing dreams that they felt were just dreams, that we would have something that would stand still, that would be scientific evidence. Well, it turned out that Alan Hynek took my suggestion seriously, and he actually set it up so that Betty was hypnotized, and she drew, as best she could under hypnosis, an accurate map. And then others, people like Marjorie Fish, who was an astronomy student at Ohio State University, I think, got wind of it and was able to get access to the map and then created a 3D model which ultimately resolved to two stars called Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 as the probable location of the stars on the map that Betty drew, and that's where that all started from. And when I looked at this whole thing that I had started, I realized that there would never be an end because there was internal, external, and eternal controversies over the authenticity of the map, her viewpoints, how well she recollected, how many probabilities there were for other stars in different configurations to give you different answers. And I realized at this very tender age of 19 that if I was interested in extraterrestrial life, UFOs was the last thing that would ever give me an answer. So decades later, when I came across these official images from NASA of Cydonia and the face on Mars and all that's come subsequently to that, the difference is all that stands still. It's our own evidence. And even though NASA tries to claim that it's not real, it's in the archives. It has an official paper trail. And you can look on the website tonight and you can see image by image by image how we have moved this ball forward, and there's some extraordinary stuff on those pictures.
We'll be back with Richard C. Hoagland in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM.
www.casper.org. You and your family and friends will be glad you did.
News Radio. And KFAB.
Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance with the stars up above in your eyes. A fantabulous night to make romance beneath the cover of October skies. All the leaves on the trees are falling through the sound of the breezes that sway. Yeah, I'm trying to flee to the calling of your heartstrings that play soft and low. You know the night's magic seems to whisper and hush. You know the soft moonlight seems to shine in your place.
Coast to Coast AM with George Noory.
I'm looking at Richard C. Hoagland's EnterpriseMission.com website right now, and as I'm looking at some of those pictures that he's got posted, some fantastic pictures. Man, was I enthralled with the animation picture of the face on Mars. Just look at that side view. I mean, it is fantastic. It's really a great graphic. EnterpriseMission.com, that's what we're talking about with Richard C. Hoagland when we come back on Coast to Coast AM. I'm pleased to tell you about a new client here at Coast to Coast because we are on the air late and they are open late. Denny's, late night at Denny's, works because it's the perfect place to grab a booth and simply sit back and relax. And when you're in Denny's, say, hey, turn on Coast to Coast. Whether you've been out late with your friends or just getting off work at 2 in the morning, it doesn't matter. It just works. And unlike the drive-thru, Who wants to eat in their car, by the way? And besides a soggy bag of food handed to you through a window by a stranger in some dark parking lot? Do you really want that? Of course not. At Denny's, you get real food. They've got specials all the time, and they've got 3 new delicious Super Slam breakfasts as well. The Extreme Grand Slam. They've got the Denny's Hearty Ham Slam, and last but not least, Denny's Sausage Slam. So if you're hungry and you're looking for a place that's open late, it's Denny's. The next time you're out late, swing by Denny's and try one of their new Super Slams. It's just $5.99 each. Denny's all night, 24/7. Works for me. Price, participation hours may vary, and this is all for a limited time only. Do you fall short of the recommended consumption of omega-3 fruits and vegetables? Well, don't worry anymore, because 500 of you tonight, 500 of you will get free 30-day supplies of the Master Health Pack. How? Well, you call this number, 1-800-453-5396. The American Heart Association recommends regular consumption of omega-3 and these fruits and vegetables. They say not eating these important nutrients on a daily basis can rob you of your precious vitality, might even jeopardize your health as well. I like it. You got the 3 grades, the high-grade omega-3 supplement, the complete multivitamin, and the antioxidant to help your body fight premature aging. So, call this number. Take advantage of it. You just pay shipping and handling. At least 500 of you tonight. 1-800-453-5396. That's 1-800-453-5396. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Noory with Richard C. Hoagland. Richard, I'm on the EnterpriseMission.com website. Kind of hold my hand a little bit. Not too tightly, though, Hoagland. And take me through this and some of the images that we're beginning to look at here.
Okay, well, people need to log on so they can share this experience with us. www.enterprisemission.com. That'll bring up our main page. You'll scroll down a little way down the main page past the Joshua Tree Conference banner, which we'll talk about later because it actually plays a role in our moon story tonight. And the second banner at the top of the page is called Missing Apollo 11 TV Examples. And you click on that, and that takes you to a special page we prepared, which basically has, maybe a dozen images, both Moon and Mars, because we're going to talk about Mars tonight too, which we've assembled from, to kind of help us tell our story. We're starting out with some comparisons of the kind of images that we would have seen in, television land if somehow in the last decade or two NASA had not inexplicably misplaced, with the help of the National Archive, almost 700 boxes of original video, Apollo 11 video and telemetry material.
This can't happen, Richard. They had to have been stolen.
This is just absolutely nuts. We've been able to trace this now back to 1984. If you look at the top of our special Apollo 11 TV page tonight, at the very top you'll see a link which says the official story of the search for the Apollo 11 tapes. That is a PDF file that was sent to us from Parks Australia, which is one of the downlink stations in 1969 that was a huge antenna that was relaying the signals from, Buzz and Neil on the moon to NASA and to satellite television and to the rest of the world through broadcast TV networks. It turns out that if you look at some of those first images that I've got up there, you'll see on the left it says things like Parks antenna, and then on the right it says, or on the left it says broadcast, on the right it says Parks or Honeysuckle Creek. Those are Polaroid snapshots taken of the monitors at these ground stations, literally halfway around the world, compared to what the scan converter was doing in semi-real time to convert this special TV format, because it wasn't in the national broadcast NTSC video format that people can receive on their home TV sets.
That's why it was so grainy?
So it had to be converted. That's why it was so grainy. Now, if you look at the main page of Enterprise, right there's 2 thumbnails, a left composite and a right composite. And if you look at the frame on the far left of the Apollo TV examples, you can see what we all saw, including us at CBS headquarters in New York with Walter, that was broadcast. That's what we saw with Neil coming down the ladder on the left-hand side. The frame just to the right of it is a Polaroid taken off the monitor at Honeysuckle Creek. Actually, it's a 35-millimeter photograph of the slow scan monitor, showing you an incredible difference in quality.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you go to the two images on the right of that thumbnail, the one on the left, dark one, is the one we all saw of Buzz. I think he was driving the surface sampler tube into the surface there trying to get a soil sample, a so-called core tube. And the image on the right is what was photographed off the screen at Goldstone, which was another of the downlink stations in, Southern California, receiving direct TV from the moon. But this was not the video. These were just stills that were caught either by accident or because someone was taking some pictures for press that night, for media publicity. And the original 1-inch Ampex videotapes, which are of pristine quality, which could now be put through modern computer programs, digitized,
oh, yeah,
where you could see the rivets on the lunar module. Since 1984, according to the people who have, basically been looking now, ex-NASA employees, people at Westinghouse, which were in charge of the, constructing the actual TV camera for that first mission, other people around the world at the Parkes Antenna and at the Science Institute in Australia, all of these people looking since 1984 cannot find 700 boxes of Apollo 11 data, including these priceless videos, and that's like over 20 years.
Somebody's got them in their house.
They've either got them in their house or, and this is another theory we have to think seriously about, which is why we have further images further down that page, someone realized when computer technology got good enough and these original tapes could be reconstituted and put out as DVDs or put out to the broadcast networks to show again, like reprising on an anniversary of Apollo 11, maybe there were things on that horizon that we were not supposed to see. To give you one example, at the very top of that page, the Apollo page we prepared, there is a mosaic of Apollo color lunar films that Buzz Aldrin shot, standing
right, and it's got his signature up there in the top,
his signature on the top.
Right.
That was made by somebody at the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal. I forget his name, but you go to the Apollo Science Journal site, and it's, everybody's credited there. This was a mosaic put together of the Hasselblad, color hard copy film that was shot. Look at that horizon.
It is so pristine, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely. But these are like 1/250th of a second images,
yes,
snapshots, that were then put together on the ground as a mosaic in the computer decades after Buzz shot those pictures. Because they were individual frames and they were put together as a panorama. The TV camera, if you go back and you look at the films or the kinescopes of that broadcast, you'll see that what they did is they had Buzz basically set up the TV camera and then turn it around the horizon in segments, moving it and then stopping, and then letting it sit there, and several, seconds ran of video.
Just move it again.
Then move it again, just so they got a complete panorama of the landing site. Well, each of those frames, which were set at, I think, 30 frames per second, each of those frames in the computer could be stacked. They could be added to each other, which drives down the noise and builds up the signal. It's kind of like taking a long time exposure. And what would we have seen on that horizon or over that horizon if those original scan Apollo 11 black and white tapes had been processed by modern 21st century computer technology, and is that why those boxes have disappeared? I mean, this is a national disgrace.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. They're hiding them for some reason.
I think they're hiding them based on what's in the photographs below. Now, if you go down below Buzz's panorama, which is film, you'll see I've got side-by-side comparisons of the broadcast version of the TV versus what was shot at the ground stations off the monitors. And you can see that it's night and day.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
You can see
Big
the
difference.
potential I mean, this was a very high-end, state-of-the-art black and white camera that Westinghouse had developed to go to the moon for this first mission. Stan LeBar, who was a senior engineer at Westinghouse, he was 44 at the time, you know, gave us all kind of primers in how the camera worked and what the lighting conditions were expected to be and signal to noise and the bandwidth and all the technical stuff, which ultimately doesn't mean anything to anybody except an engineer. And we all fully expected someday that we would get to see much better versions of that landing, of that incredible historic footage of the events Buzz talked about, and someone has stolen our heritage.
I got to tell you, just looking at these images, looking at the LEM on the moon,
yep.
You look at that and you go, how in the heck did that thing make it?
Now, another part of the story is that tonight we were going to run an experiment in Washington, D.C. We had a television station, TV 49,
Cable?
approach us.
Yeah.
And they are doing a kind of a simulcast in that they're running a crawl across their screens for everybody in D.C. who can hear my voice. If you tune in channel 49, UHF, remember UHF, George?
I sure do.
They're not even on cable yet, they're so new. But they have really taken fire on the story because they broadcast to the entire metropolitan area. They have a very 150,000 watt effective signal. They have their antenna 400 feet up on the NBC antenna on Cathedral Hill. They blanket the District of Columbia and 30 miles beyond the Beltway. All night long, as we're on the show here, they're running these pictures on television for people who listen to Coast who don't have computers, George. As you know, and I know, a lot of people who listen to us when we do this stuff with the Internet, they can't see it because they don't have computers.
That's true.
So for people in the metro area, tonight you can see all these pictures. They're running sequentially. They're looping them so that you'll see all the pictures with captions come by.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. They're going to do it all night. And what they've done is they sent out a press release to all the major media in Washington today, to the Congress, to the White House, to NASA, telling the legislators, your and my representatives on Capitol Hill, that there is an amazing story coming off. Apparently NPR did a feature this morning on National Public Radio on this same missing Apollo tape story. So people can see in the comfort of their own home or their offices, even if they don't have the Internet, they can actually see what we're talking about. And I really want to compliment the station management and the ownership, and this is an experiment. They're also running a crawl across their screen for you folks in the D.C. area who see this to, call them or email them and give them some feedback of whether you'd like to see more of this, because they're planning, if this works, to do this with some other guests on Coast to Coast.
Well, that's not a bad idea, Richard.
It's a terrific idea because they have a captive audience. The only way, George, we're going to make a difference in this extraordinary, horrific tragedy of losing 700 boxes of heritage is if somebody can track them down and fess up and say, I've got them, I was told to take them, there's an agenda, they're in such and such a warehouse, they're in such and such a room at Goddard. This TV station is planning to send news crews tomorrow to both NASA headquarters to interview Michael Griffin on record, the new NASA administrator, as to what he's doing to find these tapes, as well as another crew out to Goddard to the one laboratory, George, which exists currently that can play the tapes, and they're planning to close it and eliminate the equipment in October of this year.
Now, these tapes, Richard, were they supposed to end up at Goddard? Is that where they were going?
They were supposed to end up at the National Archives. And apparently, according to the story, which is, again, linked to our Apollo page, to the PDF that was written by the astronomer at Parkes Observatory who's been spearheading the effort to find them, who was part of the original team that recorded them on magnetic tape in Australia for us and for, posterity.
Right.
He has been looking since apparently 84. And he's written his whole story up. It's there on the web. It's linked both on our site. It's also linked on the TV 49 site in D.C. If somebody who happens to have a computer, comes by the station. It's an amazing story because the trail ends when Goddard apparently asked the National Archive to send these 700 boxes of original NASA Apollo 11 data back to Goddard from the archive where they had been kept up until 1984, from 69 to 84. And these boxes leave and are signed out of the National Archives.
Okay, so they were there.
Yes.
Okay.
And they never arrived at Goddard. There is no written record
That
of
they showed up.
anybody who received them.
So who was the one carting them around?
The guy who did sign for them, who's now dead, has left no paper trail as to where they were stored.
Oh, my.
And, I mean, I'm hoping that this incredible audience, which, as you know, is the smartest audience in radio,
Yes, they are.
know people who know people who know people who know someone who knows where these tapes are. And it's one of these things where if you send us an email and you say they're in such and such a locker, or that kind of thing, it's no blame, no shame here. All we want, all the people at NASA, all the Goddard guys, all the NBC people, CBS people, ABC people who were part of this whole incredible story back then, all we want is and I'm talking on behalf of all Americans, all our tapes back.
But we don't know where they are anymore.
But we don't know where they are. And so what we were hoping was that by simulcasting this program tonight on this incredibly innovative and pioneering TV station, TV 49 there in D.C., that we could get some political clout and we could get some noise in the media, mainstream media like the Washington Post, New York Times, CBS, NBC, Fox, CNN, whatever, to basically go and knock on Mike Griffin's door.
That's Freudian there, Richard.
Well, it's another discussion for later in the evening.
Yes.
Mike Griffin's door, who is now the NASA administrator, who is going to us and to the Congress with a perfectly straight face and asking for billions of dollars, George, to go back to the moon. Now, why would we give Michael the money to do that if they can't protect the information that we got the first time around?
Crazy. I mean, what would you be doing right now, for example, if all the Viking pictures of Cydonia were just gone?
We'd be dead in the water.
Yeah.
We could never prove anything that we claimed was official, because the key now in the internet age is that we post pictures. We have links to the original documents and examples of those images in the official NASA archive.
I think we crashed your site again, Bob.
That's why television is handy, because you can't crash TV. So everybody in the D.C. area who's listening to us, did I understand correctly that WMAL is off the air tonight?
I don't know if they're doing transmitter work tonight or not. I got a couple fast blasts from some people who listen regularly to WMAL AM in D.C., and they said that they were hearing some sporadic static. So, and every once in a while a station will do a little transmitter maintenance. So I don't know if it's tonight totally or just for an hour or two. I don't know. So if anybody's out there in Fast Blast land and you're listening to us on WMAL, my favorite station in Washington, D.C., just send me a little message and let me know if that transmitter maintenance has been taken care of.
Well, TV 49 has been doing promos all day for WMAL in our broadcast tonight.
Great.
Because the idea is to get a squeeze play going here. At the top of the Enterprise website, you will find an email link, which is Dr. Michael Griffin's formal NASA headquarters email address. If anybody out there is upset as I am, having worked on this, shoulder to shoulder with Walter Cronkite, and find it unconscionable that we can lose this priceless heritage. You only land on the moon for the first time once, right? And the idea that we can't ever see the real quality of those images and maybe some interesting things that those cameras recorded because someone either deliberately stole these boxes or put them in some black vault somewhere because they don't think we should ever see them, or just ripped them off because they want to make a buck on eBay.
Yeah, or sold them to some collector, some rich collector.
Some private collector. I mean, there's a great Star Trek where they steal data and put him in this room with all these other one-of-a-kind things. Can you imagine if there is some guy, some multi-billionaire somewhere who is showing through his computer technology the original landing tapes from Apollo 11?
And he owns them.
And he's got them, and he brings in certain of his cronies, and they sit there, and they ooh and they ah, and he knows that they're the only ones that exist on the entire... I mean, this is an outrage.
And let me correct that. He doesn't own them. We do.
We own them, and he's just stolen them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's several possible scenarios. It's almost irrelevant which scenario is right. The fact is, these boxes, 698 out of 700, are missing.
It should be an FBI investigation.
There absolutely should. And so Channel 49 is tomorrow morning going to ask Mike Griffin on camera, what are you doing to find them? And what I am doing with this audience is saying that somewhere out there tonight, someone, George, knows more about this than we know now.
No question about it.
And as patriotic Americans, they are going to let us know so we can get back what is our combined mutual heritage of a priceless moment that, as you heard earlier tonight, Buzz Aldrin still remembers vividly every single moment of that undefinable experience. And we don't get to share it with him because we can't get our own tapes.
When we come back, we're going to talk with Richard C. Hoagland about some lunar artifacts. What does Richard really think might be on the moon? And also we'll talk about Mars as well. By the way, he's got a conference coming up at Joshua Tree in California. All the information is on the EnterpriseMission.com website. But if you don't have a computer, here's a toll-free number for you. That's 800-900-7030. That's 800-900-7030. And, of course, his critically acclaimed Godman and E.T. series, the DVD series, is available as well off the website or at 877-345-6222.
CureSearch.org. You're not as alone as you feel. Brought to you by CureSearch and the Ad Council.
I'll admit, I'm no Rush Limbaugh, but definitely worth staying tuned for. Join me right after Rush, the Tom Becker Show on News Radio 1110.
Just sent Lex an article from the Register in the United Kingdom about Stephen Greer, and you might want to take a look at it. It's up there on the coasttocoastam.com website. The Register, very complimentary to us at Coast to Coast, talking about how Greer was talking about this situation with art, and then they also mention how we have broken the Dubai Port Story deal well before the national media. So very interesting. Indeed. But go take a look at it. Lex has it posted there is a huge story on the coasttocoastam.com website. Back in a moment with Richard C. Hoagland on Coast to Coast AM. Why do energy drinks make you crash? It's the large amounts of sugar and caffeine. That's why you should try 5-Hour Energy. It gives you hours of energy without the crash. 5-Hour Energy contains B vitamins, enzymes, and amino acids. 0 sugar and just enough caffeine. Drink it in seconds, feel it in minutes, and it lasts for hours. It's in the diet section of Walgreens, the pain relief section of Rite Aid, plus most 7-Eleven, GNC, and Vitamin Shop stores. For more information, go to hoursofenergy.com. If you're like me, you can't keep up with what's going on with cellular. That's why I'm sticking with TracFone, America's #1 prepaid wireless service. It's simple. You go to Kmart, buy your phone, buy an airtime card, and you're done. You don't have to sign a contract, wade through a huge monthly bill, compare plans. One look at TracFone's unique airtime balance display, and you know exactly how many minutes you have left. Pop into Kmart and get the Nokia 1100 for just $19.99 and get back in control.
Jason was scared around girls and couldn't ask them out. Amanda told me that when she had to get up and give a speech, she wanted to barf. Bill explained that he's intimidated by his boss and embarrassed. Linda has to do presentations for her job, and she draws a blank every time. Sound familiar? Confidence is elusive, and it's the one most important thing you can have to attract love, get more sex, get a promotion, be a great public speaker, and even become a creative genius. I'm Wendy Friesen, and I will hypnotize you to be more confident. By amplifying your strengths while in hypnosis, you can be charismatic, excited, and sexy when you need it most. Call me at 877-68-HAPPY. Get your ultimate confidence hypnosis CD package, and you will have trouble wiping that sexy smile off of your face. Run up to the stage, tell your boss what you really think, in a charismatic way, of course. 877-68-HAPPY, or on the web at wendy.com. That's WENDI.com. 877-68-HAPPY.
First to the moon, then to Mars. Sounds like a movie, Richard C. Hoagland, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Lunar artifacts. You know, today I was recording the portion of my audiobook, Worker in the Light, and man, what a long, tedious job that is. I've got to do about 7 more hours of it tomorrow. I hope my voice holds up. But I was into the segment where we've written about Ingalls Swan, his book Penetration, and some of the things that he remote viewed on the moon. I want your thoughts on lunar artifacts and what you think.
Well, if you scroll down on the Enterprise page, or you're looking in D.C. at TV 49, you will see under the last composite comparison from the scan converted broadcast image versus the Polaroid of the raw images.
Okay.
You see that? Yep. There's this kind of vertical shot showing the moon at the bottom and this fuzzy stuff up above it.
Yep.
That is a Hasselblad Apollo shot taken on Apollo 10, which was the precursor mission to Apollo 11, which basically, was the forerunner, a kind of test of all the systems before they actually committed to the landing on Apollo 11. That was taken out the window, crossing the center of the moon, a region called Sinus Medi. Now, do you see that spindly, kind of architectural-looking stuff like a skyscraper sticking up?
Sticking out of nowhere. It's just right in the middle.
That is in front of the lunar module windows, above the moon, kind of parallel to the height of their lunar orbit.
What is that?
It is, I believe, and we have close-ups, if you click on the image, you go to a much bigger version you can then download into, like a Photoshop program and look at it in detail. That appears to be a glass ruin of something that was much more refined and much more polished and is now moth-eaten and full of holes from meteorite bombardment.
How tall is it?
It's miles tall. It's at least 10, 15 miles tall.
Does this picture show up anyplace else anymore?
Oh, yeah.
It does.
Well, we have a whole section on the Enterprise website based around the lunar conference I held at the National Press Club in 1996, where we have tons of these kinds of pictures.
So these haven't disappeared?
Oh, no. These have not. Well, because they kind of can't. Because in 1996, we made a huge fuss at the National Press Club in front of the National Press. And so there's kind of a record, a paper trail of that these exist in the archive. And if they disappeared, everybody would kind of say, oh, my God, what's going on here?
Okay, that can't be some kind of anomaly on the camera.
Oh, no, because we have more than one set of pictures. I had a very limited time to put these up. For instance, the one, if you go to the picture below that, all right, you see the one where it says 1967 Lunar Orbiter 3?
Right.
That is a unmanned shot from the Lunar Orbiter series that was the precursor to Apollo. Unmanned spacecraft built by the Langley Research Center south of Washington there in Virginia, sent to the moon, 5 spacecraft loaded with film. They took pictures. They basically then scanned and developed the film in the spacecraft in orbit. It was a Kodak process called BIMAT, which was kind of like a super Polaroid. And then they would electronically scan those images and telemeter the light and dark readings back to Earth, where they were reconstructed by a scan system very similar to what was used on Apollo to reconstruct the images that were taken by a spacecraft non-electronically orbiting the moon. And that is only one of many, many pictures from Lunar Orbiter which show, I mean, you see that thing we call the shard sticking up?
Yes.
That's several miles tall. See the shadow?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a solid. Now, that little cross above it is a resume mark.
That's not that's not a doctored photo, right?
No, absolutely not. These are totally undoctored. People have been ordering these since I went on with art in 1996, talking about them. There's a close-up of a thing behind the shard I call the tower, which is a several miles high glass tower with a cube on top, which is, solid stuff and has not been pummeled to pieces by meteorites. This stuff is really sticking up above the moon. And it's this kind of stuff, George, that I think we would have seen on the computerized, digitized versions of the Apollo 11 television, which is why the boxes have gone away.
You may be right. I mean, look at the shadow. It's the shadow that really is unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
But I've got to tell you, depending on the distance this photo was taken, assuming it was up close, I got to tell you, Richard, this thing looks like a small alien or a figurine or something. Doesn't it?
Well, it always look kind of like a bowling pin to me.
Well, but it looks like it's got a head and little eyes.
Well, don't get too anthropomorphic here. These are structures. These are ruins. When you pummel ruins, I mean, just look at the awful pictures coming back from Lebanon of skyscrapers after they've been bombed.
Yeah.
And they can take all kinds of shapes. We're looking at stuff that's incredibly old, incredibly abandoned, but because of Brookings, remember that official government NASA report that I've been talking about with Art for years? If we ever found this stuff, NASA itself said it could not tell us because we couldn't handle the truth. It's in black and white in the so-called Brookings report, which is also available on the Enterprise Mission website.
And what was that report done, by the way?
1959.
All right, 59. So we're talking about 47 years ago.
Yep.
Maybe 47 years ago we couldn't handle the truth. But we sure could now.
I totally agree. I think that what has become fossilized, archaic policy, kind of presided over by doddering fools who don't understand where the world is now in the 21st century and how desperately uplifting it would be for the human species to realize it's not alone, that we have neighbors, we had neighbors, they left us the very best in the way of information, perhaps science, perhaps in priceless engineering or physics. I mean, Greer talks about free energy. Can you imagine if we were able to actually land and walk into an ancient abandoned ruin inside the moon where there was equipment and laboratories and, power plant facilities and all the things required? Remember Buzz said it was very hard to live on the moon because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Well, suppose you found that somebody had already licked the problem and all of that technology was yours for the asking to apply to all the problems we have here on this planet, in particular to get us out of the oil trap, which, of course, is what's going on in the Middle East.
How do we know that an ancient Earth civilization didn't have the kind of technology and they got to the moon?
We don't. It's absolutely one of the options. And we're not going to know until we get to the libraries and find out who signed the documents, in whatever form those documents are, recorded on crystals, the equivalent of DVDs or CDs or whatever. You mentioned at the bottom of the hour that we have a conference coming up.
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree. I have an extremely knowledgeable colleague, Steve Troy, who heard me talk about this with Art over 10 years ago, has spent a fortune of his own money buying and ordering negatives, analog negatives from the National Space Science Data Center, the Houston Spacecraft Center, all the archives that NASA maintains where they have redundant copies of these films. He has room after room in his house filled with books of original hard copy negatives, which he has then printed up in sectional enlargements and looked at with magnifying loops. And he has come to the independent conclusion, after 10 years of doing this, that we are 100% correct. The moon is studded with all kinds of ruins and artifacts and artificial things beaten to hell because of meteorite bombardment and because they're so incredibly ancient. And I've invited him to come to Joshua Tree and present stunning evidence in person to those who show up that we, in fact, are not alone, that there is this stuff on the moon. And you know, George, how people keep talking about the smoking gun?
Yes.
The one picture that will tip you over the edge? I have that picture. I've had it for several months. Steve doesn't even know I've got this picture.
I didn't even know you have that picture.
I'm going to show it for
You
the first
never
time.
hold things back from me.
Well, you and a few million of our friends, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to show it for the first time at Joshua Tree.
Boy, do you know how to tease. My.
Hey, I learned from the master.
Yeah,
Come on.
All right.
And, you know, after people see this, there will be no doubt. I've shown this now kind of like in focus groups to a small handful of people. And these are people ranging from professional scientists to television producers to just curious people that we happen to know because we happen to know them. And to a person, man and woman, they are absolutely astonished with the smoking gun nature of this evidence.
And how would you compare this to what you found on the Cydonia picture in terms of just perception?
In terms of people being able to see it and know instantly what it is and go, oh my God, it's real, it doesn't belong there, therefore the rest of this is real?
Yes.
I'd say it's probably, in terms of our current knowledge of Cydonia, it's probably a factor of 100 better.
Oh my gosh.
There is no doubt. George, when you see this, when you come out on Sunday afternoon, on the 8th, you will get to see this, all right, with a whole bunch of other people so you can all kind of share your reactions. And then on Sunday night, we're going to all talk about this. You are going to be absolutely blown away because there will be no doubt in your mind that, A, NASA has been sitting on the biggest story ever told. B, the astronauts are somehow victims in this. I firmly believe that as good patriots, they were all told at the time, because of Brookings, we can't tell anybody, but there will come a time we're preparing the public and we will tell them. And I think as they're quietly one by one dying, I mean, Buzz said there's 18 left now of the 24, right?
Yeah.
We're not getting any younger, any of us. And all that has to happen is for the clock to run out, and there will be no first-person witnesses to corroborate when officialdom decides in their infinite wisdom it's time to tell the American people what's really there. So what we're trying to do through the efforts at Enterprise and through the help of our friends like the management at TV 49 tonight there in D.C., we're trying to open the door and get congressmen and legislators and the new administration of NASA, Dr. Griffin himself, to look at this, to look the American people in the eye and say, we really need to find this evidence that's gone missing.
That's fascinating. And how about shortly thereafter, then, we show that picture on Coast to Coast?
Absolutely.
Links to you and everything.
You got a deal.
Okay.
When you see it, it will cause so many implications to come to your mind. I mean, what I've tried to do is to put together a weekend.
How come this hasn't been hidden, by the way, this picture?
Because I think from the beginning there was a two-pronged strategy. In Washington, the worst thing that you can be accused of, and if it's proven, is not the crime. It's the cover-up.
Right.
Remember, Nixon didn't lose his presidency because of the break-in. He lost it because he lied and he tried to cover it up.
Yes.
So if NASA, which is full of very smart people, realized that Brookings was kind of running their life, what I think they did, I think they put things out there on the public record so they could never be accused of being 100% in favor of the lie.
And they just never comment on anything?
And they never comment. And we live in a culture, George, as you know, where if you don't call a press conference and are surrounded by 14 PhDs, nobody's going to pay attention except for the few. Now, if Brookings is accurate, if they're projecting that the American people will run amok and by metonymy the rest of the world, you know, that great line from Ghostbusters, cats and dogs living together, remember that, Bill Klein? That we would all go nuts if we found out this was true, then it probably was prudent to, in the beginning, try some kind of planned, I call it time-released aspirin to acclimate the social consciousness and the social fabric to this wider reality. I had a call the other day from a major figure in a major television network, which has suddenly come to us and approached us about doing some work, some coverage of our work on Mars, that we'll get to probably in the next hour. As part of the, I said to this producer, very high-level producer, I said, you know, I somehow get the feeling over the years that we are part of Brookings' recommended time-release disclosure. Because look at the way it's worked out, George. We have been able to find all kinds of extraordinary evidence. We have held press conferences. We've held them at the National Press Club. I've done too many shows on Coast. You know, I've lost count how many shows you and I and Art have done on these subjects. We have done conferences. We've published books. Suppose we're part of the acclimation program by default. In other words, they don't hide everything because they know that there will be a few of us assiduously looking, putting the science together, putting the data out there, and that a small percentage, a small but increasing percentage of the American people will slowly, one by one, turn to taking this more seriously. So someday, George, in their infinite wisdom, when they finally are forced to make the announcement, the culture has been prepared. And we have been part of the preparation, albeit an unwilling part, because, of course, I want this to come out tomorrow.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you a question, because some people have asked me to ask you this. Are you part of some kind of NASA plot?
No.
Now, I say not because I know you, but I have to ask you that.
Absolutely not. And what I laid out is the closest that I think we've ever come to being officially, shall we say, used as part of this running disclosure. Because you look at pictures, I mean, look at the one that we have under the lunar orbit shot, the one I call Mitchell under glass. This is a photograph that was taken by Alan Shepard of Ed Mitchell setting up the TV camera on Apollo 14, and he was wearing a gold visor. So all this blue stuff would have automatically been filtered out. You wouldn't have seen it. The way we found this is that I got access through Ken Johnston, who has been on Coast, you know, a former NASA engineer, former test Apollo astronaut.
Wasn't he with us during the shuttle disaster?
Yes. He was a spokesman because he actually worked on the shuttle program just before he retired from NASA. He has sequestered away a set of the original Apollo images, the hard copy images, from many of the missions. And the reason he did that is university somewhere in the Midwest, I think it was in Tulsa, if I remember now, Oklahoma, is because he had been ordered by his boss at the Lunar Receiving Laboratory in Houston to destroy all the extra copies of the films. This was an official NASA order from his boss to take these out and back and burn them. Just get rid of them. Not even give them to a high school or a college, but to destroy them. So something in Ken revolted against that. So instead, he took the films that NASA had officially said we don't want anymore, and he gave them to his university. And when I met him years and years later in Seattle, where he worked for Boeing, when he came up to me at one of our lectures, and he said, I may have something that you might want to look at. And I went to his home, and I saw some of the pictures that he had preserved, and then I literally bought him an airplane ticket, put him on an airplane. This was right after the Murrah building had been blown up.
Yes.
And he flew into Tulsa to try to get the rest of the pictures from his university. And like the Apollo 11 tapes, they had gone missing.
We've got a story up as a feature article on coasttocoastam.com. I read it Friday. Lex has the story posted with pictures as well about basically someone who worked for NASA, and it was his job collect these pictures that you're talking about now, and he had a contact at the Department of Defense at the Pentagon where he had to take these pictures, Richard, gave it to him, and then he never, ever heard from the guy again. And these were apparently very revealing pictures. You got a moment during the break, go to our website, coasttocoastam.com, Richard, and just take a look at the feature story. That'll be fascinating for you as well. I'm George Noory, back in a moment with Richard C. Hoagland. I tell you what, we're going to talk about Mars, but we'll also open up the phone lines. So our final hour, how fast time goes by. So we'll give you an opportunity to chat with Mr. Hoagland as well.
Find out more about tonight's guest. Log on to coasttocoastam.com.
Community.org or call 877-KIDS-313. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
News Radio 1110 KFAB. International callers may reach George Noory by calling their in-country Sprint access number, pressing option 5, and dialing toll-free 1-800-893-0903 from the City of Angels. This is Coast to Coast AM with George Noory.
And our special guest tonight, Richard C. Hoagland. We're going to chat with Richard, and also we'll pepper this with your phone calls on Coast to Coast AM. Remember the thrill of tuning into a radio for the very first time and listening? Well, you can have that same feeling again with perfect clarity using the Wi-Fi radio from C. Crane. There are thousands of Wi-Fi radio stations around the world, and C. Crane's new Wi-Fi radio finds and organizes all of them. Unpack the radio, and within minutes, you can tune in a favorite local station or tune across the world to Italy and everywhere in between. With a broadband wireless connection, you're ready to listen. It even works when your computer is turned off. Listen to internet radio stations around the world or down the street. And of course, you can listen to Coast to Coast clear as a bell with no monthly fee. C. Crane's new world's first complete Wi-Fi radio is $299.95, and that includes free ground shipping. Order your Wi-Fi radio right now at ccradio.com. That's ccradio.com, or give them a call at 800-522-8863. That's 1-800-522-8863. More than half of the men over the age of 60 have enlarged prostates, and as men age, the chances that their prostate will become enlarged increases, and by age 80, about 80% have an enlarged prostate gland. Only about half of these men have any symptoms due to their prostate. I did something very smart a long time ago. I took Super Prostate Formula. and it has done its job. So are you looking for the ultimate in healthy prostate support, urinary function, and a good night's sleep? And if so, then Super Prostate Formula may be for you. It improves sleep. We're so confident you'll be delighted with Super Prostate Formula that you can try it absolutely free. That's right, free. So call now for your free 30-day trial of Super Prostate Formula and be on your way to reducing those nighttime trips and improving your sleep. Just pay shipping and handling. Call now. 1-800-603-7277. That's 1-800-603-7277. 1-800-603-7277. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Noory with Richard C. Hoagland. We'll take your calls this hour as well. Richard, this is the 30th anniversary of the Viking mission, is it not?
It certainly is, George, and it doesn't seem like 30 years, I got to tell you.
It's been. Where does the time go?
It flies by. It absolutely flies by.
Now,
by the way, before we get off on the Mars, let me make one more point about the moon. And I do want to make a couple more points about some substantive things in terms of artifacts. If people want to see some of this stuff close up and personal, about 10 years ago, I gave a very elaborate presentation at Ohio State University, which we have put on DVD. And there are literally, both for the Joshua Tree Conference tonight and for the DVDs, operators, I always wanted to say this, operators literally standing by for your phone calls in case you want to order this specific DVD. It's part of the Moon Mars collection, which is offered at the 800 number 1-877-345-6222. There are folks there, good folks tonight, standing by because they knew I was going to be doing this. And you'll get to see all kinds of absolutely astonishing artifacts, things on the moon that do not belong, that are part of the rubble and the ruins that we believe we have found, and that we are going to be adding to when we do the Joshua Tree Conference, which, of course, is why those operators are standing by, because if you miss this before the next major push of public relations from NASA in terms of the Bush presidency vision, return to the moon, and then on to Mars, you're going to be missing out on a piece of history that we really do still retain, unlike the Apollo 11 tapes. So I would advise people, if they want to get this stuff and look at it in the privacy of their own home, run it again and again and again, show it to your friends, show it to your neighbors, show it to people who say, oh, you guys listen to Coast, you're nuts. Show them hard evidence, not rumors, not third-party, anecdotal material, but actual, official, NASA, archival, photographic evidence of astonishing things right next door.
And this Joshua Tree event is almost like a mini vacation, isn't it?
Well, we're setting it in the desert. We're going to have pictograph explorations in the morning at dawn. We're going to be doing some group consciousness experiments, a la what you and Art have started, as part of the kind of HD conscious technology explorations of alternatives to the potential problems of 2012. We're going to go deeply into the whole 2012 saga, the Mayan calendar, what the countdown time is, what the physics, the experiments that I've been doing, that I found in the Soviet Union, that they've been doing unbeknownst to the West, that are extraordinarily relevant to this whole 2012, what's really going on. We're going to explain, George, exactly what 1111 means. And if you're not there when we explain it, I'll explain it to you privately.
All right. Let's take a few calls and we'll talk about Mars. They're lining up for you, Richard.
Okay.
I don't want
and
to
so if people want to reserve, and I must say the reservations are going fast, so you got to get in while the getting is good. That 800 number is 1-800-900-7030 for the Joshua Tree Conference on Columbus Day weekend in October.
And if people miss the phone numbers, they're all on the EnterpriseMission.com website.
For those people who have the web, and if you're in D.C., the numbers are actually on TV 49.
Excellent. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with us on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
I'm calling from Quebec City, Canada. My name is Kevin.
Okay, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay. You can put me on the skeptical list, okay?
That's fine.
I know. I listen to your show a lot, and I know that we're entitled to our opinion, obviously. And I was just asking maybe, first of all, I have a little comment on extraterrestrial life before I ask a question to Mr. Hoagland, if I may. If I'm not mistaken, before there was actual intelligent life here on Earth, there was millions and billions of years where there was water, oxygen, but no intelligent life, right?
According to the current models, yes.
Okay, that's all. Okay, now, to submit your question on civilization and markings and ruins on Mars, Mr. Hoagland, I have a question. Would that have been done by Earthlings?
We don't know.
Okay, we don't know. But what is your opinion on that? Because I think you're leaning on the Earthling, right?
Well, when I wrote Monuments of Mars, A City on the Edge Forever, and it's now in its 5th edition, that shows you how popular and how many that apparently the publisher was able to get rid of. I've expanded the model in every edition. Basically I've leveled with people. I've told them when I thought a certain thing. I then told them in later editions when I thought things that were contradictory. My initial idea was that the things that we found on Mars had to have been done by somebody visiting from outside the solar system, because I believed the evolutionary, origin of humankind and going up the evolutionary ladder and just developing technology about 6,000 years ago and space flight about, 60 years ago, and et cetera. Now, given what I know about ancient history, given what I know about what we found on the moon, given what I know about extraordinary technology discovered by mainstream science, which had no place to be placed in that evolutionary timeline, I could easily be convinced that we're looking at stuff that was done by a previous high-tech civilization here on Earth, and we simply, because of planetary catastrophes or amnesia or some cultural thing that swept over the planet, we totally forgot what we used to be able to do, and we've been climbing back to the capability to go out and look at our own stuff. I could totally buy that, because I'm not sold on any one model to explain it. The thing I am sold on is the evidence, the data is real. There are really ruins on the moon and on Mars, and somebody did it, and I'm waiting for the day when I can find out who did it.
Talking about synchronicity, Richard, this week we have Michael Cremo on the program.
Yes. Rob and I were just, commenting to each other that we're going to stay up tomorrow night, because Michael's an old friend, and he has one heck of another perspective on the idea that ancient cultures on Earth may have been so much more incredibly sophisticated than we have ever been given credence. And we don't know that because we have somehow devolved from that high level of a former civilization. And Michael has extraordinarily interesting evidence to support that point of view.
Sure thing. Stay up tomorrow, but he's on Thursday, by the way.
Oh, it's Thursday.
All right. You don't miss any of the programs anyway.
Oh, not every night. I'm not always working at this computer.
By the way, you do a great job as the science editor here for us, because our advisors, the little tidbits you send us on a regular basis are very helpful.
People need to know that I am constantly peppering George with notes, 99.9% of which he ignores. But when he takes one, it's a gem.
It's a gem. That's right. He screens them out. When you first saw the face at Sidonia, I'm looking at you got to tell me where you got this graphic that you've got for your Godman and E.T. series of the profile of the face on Mars.
Okay.
Where did that come from?
Is that the one that says Sidonia at the top?
Yes.
Okay, that's from Mark Carlotto. That is a three-dimensional computer reconstruction in Dr. Carlotto's computers, done in Boston by the Analytical Sciences Corporation, probably, 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer?
Great picture.
And it's a 3D perspective shot of what you would see if you were in an airplane flying into Sidonia now. All right? It's not the way it used to look. It's the way it would look now if you weren't looking down from orbit but were in a very high altitude aircraft or a helicopter coming in for a landing. What's really astonishing is that profile up there of the face can be matched point for point with a clay model that was done by one of our artists in the Enterprise mission in the early years back in the 80s. Her name is Kinthea. She is going to be bringing a whole bunch of her paintings to Joshua Tree and exhibiting for people who would like to get up close and personal with the more artistic side of this investigation. And when you compare the two models of the face, the 3D models, remember, NASA's claim all these years was, oh, it's just a trick of light and shadow, meaning it wasn't 3D, it wasn't a statue, right?
Right.
When you compare Cynthia's clay model with Mark Carlotto's digital 3D model, the two turned out to be exactly the same. Two totally independent people, separated by 4 years, separated by an entire continent. They didn't even know each other, and they came out with the exact same statue of a 3D face, a humanoid face, lying on Mars, looking up at the stars, where it has no business being unless it has something profound to tell us.
Gosh, I wish we had some answers. You know?
Well, with MRO, if we all get together in this audience, in the next few weeks I'm going to bore the tears out of you by telling you how you can do it, we may actually be able to politically reach out and change history and finally get the truth, George, because that camera in MRO, which is attached to a 20-inch telescope looking down from less than 180 miles up, is going to be able to read the proverbial license plates at Cydonia, to see the girders I've talked about in these constructions, the massive ruins in such decay and dilapidation because of their incredible age. And if we can force the politics in Washington to be honest, if we can get Mike Griffin to simply make a pledge like he did with Hansen a few weeks ago, that no good science will be covered up by PR and media spin, we will get the truth this fall on a question which has lingered for over 25 years. In fact, 30 years from this summer on July 20th.
Well, and let's hope we don't get a hatchet job like they did on the Global Surveyor. Remember
That's
that
where
one?
all this audience has to basically mind its P's and Q's and be on their mettle and pay attention, and we will keep them honest that way.
First-time caller line, you're on the air with Richard C. Hoagland on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi there, George. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
This is Tom from Hutchinson, Kansas.
All right, Tom.
The reason I called is because Richard was talking about they had missing film and stuff from the
Apollo 11, yep.
Yeah. I had a place for him to start his search. Okay?
All right.
Here in Hutchinson, Kansas, we have a space museum called the Cosmosphere.
Yes.
It's where the Apollo 13 capsule is and Liberty Bell 7 and all that. Anyway, they have a warehouse here. Actually, they have two of them. And I'm a fireman here in Hutchinson, and I've done building inspections on this warehouse.
Oh.
And when we go through it, there's always someone that has to follow along with us to, show us around the building. And we'd always ask questions because it's just filled with tons and tons of different artifacts from all the space missions and things like that. And one time we're going through and they have shelves of boxes of what are film reels. And I asked the guy one time, I said, what are these? And he goes, well, just about every film ever taken during the Mercury missions and the Apollo missions are in these boxes. And
now what we're looking for is not film.
But you're looking for 1-inch videotape, right?
1-inch magnetic videotape, which was the old Ampex standard. We used to run them at CBS. Yep. All the networks had them.
Used to be 2-inch, then it went to 1-inch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're in big boxes, and you can't kind of, conceal them. You can't shrink them down. So somewhere there are 698 boxes of these, and they're probably all together. And that's a very good lead. And I don't know whether the NASA people looking around, have thought of the Cosmosphere, which has done a very good job of saving and preserving and finding. I mean, they have found spacecraft, George, in junkyards that NASA had just sold for scrap.
Amazing.
And they found them and reconstructed them and refurbished them, and like the Smithsonian does with the Wright Flyer and Lindbergh's plane and all that. Except there's a private group in Kansas near Kansas City, I believe, that's done this for years and years and years. It would be astonishing if these tapes were to somehow have gotten into people like those archives, and we could find some kind of a lead there.
Well, what could these films be, though, Richard?
Well, the films, NASA made umpteen films over the years. They would put out a PR film on every mission within like a week of the mission coming back. And when I was the National Press Club, one of the things I did is I ran one of these original films from Apollo 12. And then I showed the assembled reporters how when you take the individual frames and put them through a computer, and you enhance the background, you see all this structure, these girders, in what should be a pitch-black lunar sky. I mean, go back to the web and go to that very top picture that's signed by Buzz, right?
Yes.
You see the lamb there over on the left?
Yeah.
You see Buzz's shadow, pitch-black lunar sky, stark gray landscape. His signature, of course, is not in the real sky on the moon, okay?
Yes.
Then you scan down on the page to the blue Mitchell under glass picture. That is a similar picture taken on Apollo 14 by Alan Shepard that was squirreled away by Ken Johnson for 30 years out of NASA's clutches. And when you put it under computer and you simply, enhance the contrast, that's what's in the sky. That's all I've done with this picture is to turn up the gain. That's what I think we would have seen on the Apollo 11 scans, which are magnetically pristine and are now missing, so we can't put them through a computer process.
Have you done any work on Apollo 13?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. In fact, Steve is going to be showing some of the most amazing things that were photographed by the Apollo 13 crew, Jim Lovell and his crew on Apollo 13. Remember, they didn't think they'd ever get home, and yet they took pictures.
Right.
And in the movie, there's that great scene where he says, if you want to get home, I think we better stop taking the pictures. Well, on those pictures, which I went looking for because I thought maybe the sensors had missed some things, lo and behold, we found some astonishing things, and Steve found the most incredible artifact on the far side of the moon, which when you see it, you are going to absolutely, not believe your eyes, but it's verifiable. We've got frame numbers. There's more than one picture of it. There are two pictures taken at two different angles, a few minutes apart. And, Apollo 13 was a really intriguing mission for all the things that it shouldn't have been able to do that it did, not the least of which is to survive. NASA was able to bring those people home when probably they should not have survived.
No, it was an incredible story.
Absolutely. It was NASA at its best. This hiding of data, this thinking that we're not adult enough to handle what's really out there, is NASA at its worst.
I thought you were a Mike Griffin fan.
I am. Remember, none of this was done on Mike Griffin's watch.
That's
He's
true.
the new guy.
That's true.
He has total, perfect, plausible deniability. If Mike means what he says, and I think he does, within the strictures dictated by the White House. Remember, he doesn't serve by his own.
Right.
He serves at the pleasure of the president. So the buck ultimately stops in the Oval Office, right? If there is, as I believe, a movement, an inching toward disclosure, as part of the Brookings prescription that we read in that document, Mike Griffin could now step up to the plate, and as a new guy who is going to the Congress and asking for lots of money to go back, he could keep faith with the American people on what we already got, and they haven't had the nerve or the guts to tell us.
Let's go to our wild card line in Europe on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Blair in Sedona,
Hey,
Arizona.
Blair. Sure.
Hi, Richard. Blair? Hey, Richard, you mentioned Brookings. I'd like to submit possible evidence of, Section 102, Subset B of the NASA 1958 Charter was invoked as Buzz Aldrin was exploring. And I have a phonograph record from 1970 entitled We Came in Peace for All Mankind. And off the moon exploration segment on side 2, I put on compact disc a 23-second excerpt where Colonel Aldrin and Houston are having an exchange. Now, if this is an accurate sequential account, in other words, not edited by the producers of this record for effect, except for the speed of light transmission delays that were routinely edited out on this LP, 7 minutes of lunar exploration time were taken away from Colonel Aldrin because he voiced a certain lunar anomaly to his eye. Can I play that for you, George?
How long does it run?
It's 23 seconds.
Go for it right now.
You got it.
Buzz, this is Houston. We've got about 10 minutes left now prior to commencing your EVA termination activities. I hope you're watching how hard I have to hit this into the ground. It almost looks wet. Buzz, this is Houston. You have approximately 3 minutes until you must commence your EVA termination activities. Over. Roger, understand.
I love it. Okay, hey, Blair, thank you. We'll be back with Richard C. Hoagland. We'll take final calls and wrap things up in a moment on Coast to Coast AM.
the show? Listen online with StreamLink. Log on to coasttocoastam.com.
At home, at work, or around the world. You can listen to KFAB anytime by clicking the Listen Live button at KFAB.com. International callers may reach George Noory by calling your in-country Sprint access number, pressing option 5, and dialing toll-free 800-893-0903. From the City of Angels, this is Coast to Coast AM with George Noory. Listening to that 23-second audio clip of Buzz Aldrin, really the only thing that I heard that was of really interest was he just said it kind of looked wet. But that was about it. If you're interested in some gifts and things like that, you can go to the coasttocoastam.com website and look for the gift shops. There's a link right there at the bottom of the homepage. Hats, T-shirts, and some great little novelties just for you. Do you fall short of the recommended consumption of omega-3 fruits and vegetables? Along with a regular consumption of omega-3, the American Heart Association recommends 5 servings of fruits and vegetables daily. Not eating these important nutrients on a daily basis can rob you of your precious vitality and may jeopardize your health as well. For instance, omega-3 supports healthy heart and cardiovascular function, memory, and concentration. That's why I take Master Health Pack. There's no guesswork. It contains 3 separate comprehensive formulas, a high-grade omega-3 supplement with twice the concentration of many other brands. We're so confident that you'll be thrilled with the Master Health Pack that when you call now, you can try it free. That's right. All 3 formulas free. Just pay shipping and handling, so call now. 1-800-453-5396. That's 1-800-453-5396. 1-800-453-5396. Well, he's a well-known economist and gold expert. His name is Jay Taylor. He recently wrote that the gold bull market is just beginning. And while gold recently broke the $500 an ounce barrier, then jumped to $600, they're all predicting that it could go from $1,000 up to $3,200 an ounce. And it indicates the greatest profits in gold may still be ahead of us. So if you're trying to invest for the future, now may be the very best time in history to learn more about the potential of gold in that portfolio of yours. What do you do about it? Well, call Lear Financial, 1-800-474-4259. I did that several years ago. I simply called this number, 1-800-474-4259. And they sent me the free Gold Investor Guide. Of course, I mentioned Coast to Coast AM, so they put it in a nice envelope and shipped it right out to my house. 1-800-474-4259. That gets you hundreds of dollars of insider news on gold and gold investing. 1-800-474-4259. Is Robin going to be at the Joshua Tree, Richard?
Absolutely.
Well, in that case, I may show up.
And she will welcome you with open arms.
Yes. Just make sure that your speeches are very long this time so Robin and I can dance the night away.
Okay. Actually, we're going to have outside fires. We're going to have Native American dancers. There's going to be a full moon. It's a full moon weekend. We're going to have telescopes so you can actually see the moon and some other things in the sky and have someone around that knows what they're looking at to kind of describe it to you. I mean, we're going to have one heck of a good time.
Excellent.
And people will learn a lot. They'll meet new people. They'll become a community. And it's only the first of many of these things I'm going to do because we've got to change. We basically have to change the trend curve, which is to keep us in ignorance and in blissful ignorance. And ignorance is not bliss.
And you're going to have me carried into the event with rose petals tossed at me as I come in. Is that true?
I was thinking of actually wild stallions, but, if you want rose petals, we can...
Yeah, wild stallions. You probably have me tied to them and you pull me apart or something. Back to the phones we go. East of the Rockies, you're on Coast to Coast with us. Hi there.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Pretty good.
Richard, I've listened to you so often, and one thing I've always taken from every time I've heard you is the fact that... Gosh, you always inspire thought more so than anything else. And through my influential years of my life, 9 years of it was spent in Wapakoneta, Ohio. And one of the things that
this is Neil Armstrong's hometown.
Oh, you better believe it. And the formation of SETI was actually heralded in that small town of, maybe 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the disbanding of it was a real blow to the heart. But then in the 80s, when it was reformed, again, it was heralded. The fact that, the quest to find out what's going on will live on. The only thing that wasn't answered, and perhaps you can lend a little bit of insight on your thoughts to it, is what happened in the meantime? What happened as far as, maybe influence of what SETI stood for and where the true influences of the people behind it. How did the people behind it change? Because as we know, Carl Sagan kind of changed his mind about certain things, and...
I'm not sure the SETI people have changed, Richard.
Well, no, what he's talking about is that NASA launched SETI like 25 years ago with big fanfare.
Well, and then they're out of it now. And
then Senator Proxmire, a senior senator from Wisconsin, best known for cheese, on the floor of the Senate railed against the absurdity of wasting money, NASA money, federal dollars, on searching for little green men. And because congressmen are not noted for their, courage,
vision,
they all turned around and voted the SETI experiment, which was a tiny slice of money, a few $1 million in a budget of billions.
Yes.
They voted it out of the budget, so it fell to people like Seth Shostak and others to find private sources, people like Paul Allen,
sure,
and others. So they created Project Phoenix, which was, of course, named after the fabled Egyptian bird that is reborn from the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only been in the last couple of 2 budget cycles that I believe SETI is now creeping back in to the official NASA budget process, and there is some funding of SETI-like activities through NASA once again, but it's like, an entire generation later.
Can SETI win? Because, we've got people who have heard Greer on this program and with Art, and they hear him talk about the unnamed sources that claim that they've heard signals. Can SETI win? Because, you know, we've talked to Seth Shostak, and I'm going to get him on the program because I want everybody to hear his voice. But, you know, he says, no, we haven't heard anything. Can they win, Richard? Because people don't believe them. Some people.
Can they win politically?
Yeah.
You know, they're between a rock and a hard place, because when you have a documented list of official lies, just go to the Enterprise website or turn on TV 49 in D.C. tonight, and you'll see pictures of ruins left by somebody in the solar system that wasn't George and it wasn't me.
No, but you can't blame SETI for this.
No, I'm saying against that backdrop, if they persist in claiming that they never hear anything, it does make it a little curious, because it's like, where did everybody go? If there was somebody here and they built stuff and left it all over the place, and they're no longer around, did they become extinct? Did they die off? Was it the human race collapsing back to one planet? Were they aliens or were they not aliens? In other words, SETI will ultimately, when it has enough computer power and enough antennas and has sifted through enough stars, it will have to answer publicly the question, where is everybody?
Well, assuming we're going to pick up radio waves.
Well, that's the big assumption, and that's where I really find fault with Stephen's, discussion last night with Art, because frankly, I don't think that radio is going to be the preferred medium for interstellar communication, let alone just right next door.
No, maybe the show, but we're not sure about the communication part of it.
We're going to be showing at Joshua Tree some extraordinary physics, the hyperdimensional model, which I now can confirm is backed up by decades of hidden Soviet science experiments that have been declassified. And I'm going to present some of those, like I did in Los Angeles and San Francisco earlier this year, to the Joshua Tree, community that we're assembling. And you will see that if any aliens are out there and they want to talk to other aliens across the galaxy, they're not going to be using radio, because it takes too long. So I am extraordinarily suspect of Greer's information at two levels. One is could they keep it secret? Because I think Seth is probably right. SETI is so full of holes that if they ever really heard anything, somebody would leak it. There would be some story running around on the internet. And number two, if they didn't hear anything, does that mean there's nobody out there? No, it simply means the technology is not using EM radio waves. It's using something much better that now our physics can comprehend.
I really believe if they heard something, they would need it just for more funding. They'd let the world know about it.
Well, even if they were sat on, if they were politically squashed, there's so many ways to get a disc out now and put it on the internet that something would have leaked that was more substantive than stories with unnamed people. I'm always suspicious of stories with unnamed people unless there's companion evidence. And our sources come with evidence.
What kind of evidence, aside from the fact that he won't reveal who these people are, what kind of evidence could these same people leak so that we would look at it and say this is real stuff? I mean, or could that be...
The direction in the sky where the signal came from, the frequency range it was heard on...
They can make all that up. All that could be made up.
But if you then turn real antennas and look and don't hear anything, then you have a test. See, this is what Shostak says. He says that the first thing they would do if they heard a signal is they'd call up, Jadwell Bank, they'd call up, Arecibo, they'd call up the German antennas, they'd call up the folks in the Far East,
and get everybody.
Get independent groups listening and looking in the same part of the sky.
Right.
If this was a bona fide leak, if somebody on the inside is so fed up with the lies going on that they wanted through Greer to leak that there's something really going on, why didn't they leak the full story, which is how someone like me could get an antenna and point it at the sky and listen independently?
True.
That's your test. In the photographs, we've got corroborating documented data. I got to tell you a very interesting story, George. This smoking gun image that I'm going to show,
yes,
which has more than one artifact in it, by the way. It's taken close up and personal by astronauts on the surface of the moon of things that are much smaller than my desk. All right?
All right.
They're on the order of, maybe a third of the side of my desk. I sent via email this one image to a very well-known astronaut, a household name, which I cannot reveal. What he sent back in email was the most remarkable communication I've had in the last probably year.
So you're doing the same thing Greer is.
Let me finish, please. All right? Let me tell you exactly what happened.
All right.
I don't have his permission. I do have the pictures. The difference is I've got pictures. Just go to the web and look at them.
Well, I know you have the pictures.
So I sent this to this astronaut, and he shot back an email which was not, Hoagland, you're nuts. Hoagland, never darken my door again. Hoagland, you are an utter idiot. Instead, he said, when you have found higher resolution versions, send them to me again.
And then you will bring him on the program.
I will bring him on the program. Now, this is what, since this is a guy who's in the know, what this little communication, which is full of plausible deniability, tells me is, A, it wasn't a surprise, all right? There was no shock, there was no, oh my God, that's unbelievable, you're nuts. It was get better data, which tells me and tells my friend Steve Troy that somewhere in NASA there is better data, and all we have to do is go find it. That's the way this game, and it's really a game, is being played.
Wildcard line, you're up with Richard C. Hoagland. Hi there.
Hi, good morning from Hollywood, Florida. My name is Mark.
Hey, Mark.
I'm listening to you guys on the wonderful island of dreams, 610 WIOD. I had two shuttle questions for Richard here, if time allows. The first one was regarding an interview that Art Bell had back in January of 2005 with the inventors of the HARP project, Guy Kramer and Dr. Joseph Resnick. They were discussing some of the capacities of HARP, and one of them was being able to basically destroy or break apart an ICBM on reentry as it transited through the ionosphere. And I was wondering if Richard has heard anything of HARP being active at the time Columbia was reentering, and whether it was either more than likely an inadvertent activation of it.
I've seen websites that detail that evidence, that make that claim. I don't think the evidence is compelling. I think that there were a series of incredible, sad, tragic, accidents that compounded to create the Columbia disaster. I'm watching NASA now, and all the stuff they're doing that I said on the show, George, a few weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they do then what they're doing now? Like look at the tiles and take pictures and, try to make that foam stay on and all those things that is not really a huge amount of money in the long span of the 25-year shuttle program. And it's because they got so complacent, they got so comfortable with this thing coming back looking like, run over by, an 18-wheeler, that when they got one back where they really had followed every single thing on this mission 121, they couldn't believe the pristine nature of the tiles even after landing on the runway at Kennedy and rolling out and stopping. And that means that every flight before, they were rolling the dice of Russian roulette till something did them in, and it did them in twice. And I think it is just an incredible, tragic accident. And it shows you what happens to an agency when it doesn't listen to people outside, when it thinks it knows everything, when, we're NASA and you're not, as Chevy Chase used to say, paraphrasing. And that's what killed, all those wonderful, brave men and women, and hopefully it will never happen again because we're not going to let this agency become complacent ever again.
And actually, to segue into my second question regarding 121, I did notice that on the footage that was being broadcast that day after it landed, that there was a browning on the white tiles just after the cockpit and the entry hatch.
Yes, I've seen that on all the shuttle reentries. I saw it live with my own eyes when the fourth shuttle came back, and I was at Edwards, where President Reagan was to kind of officially hand the reins over to NASA from a test program to an official active operational program. That streaking on that white, on those white tiles and that white thermal blankets is basically the carbon from the RCC, the carbon on carbon at the leading edges of the wings that boils off, and it literally condenses as a black residue of soot, of graphite, on the orbiter as it's re-entering.
That's very normal then, right?
Yep, totally normal.
Okay, thanks for the call. First time caller line, you're up on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Joe from Cheney, Washington.
Hey,
Hi,
Joe.
Richard.
Sure thing.
Hi there.
Yeah, hi, Richard. I wanna bring some things forward to you. I worked for the federal and state government, and I'm retired now. George, I've corresponded with you for many, many years. I'm the Rarotonga
Yes, sir.
traveler.
Okay.
And I have two direct relatives, one a brother, one a brother-in-law, one a retired fighter pilot that flew here in the Pacific Northwest, another one who currently works for the State Department. We've been talking about it. He's high in the State Department, and I want to stay in touch with you two because we're talking about bringing this stuff forward of their knowledge. And that's basically my call. Is other than I think you're doing a great job, Richard. Keep up the work. It's like God said, He created everything in the universe, and it doesn't really make any difference with what people think on religious values. It's let's get the truth out. The government has a way of attitude towards it's a need to know, and they don't think we need to know anything. And one other thing I'm going to say is I live out in eastern Washington, and I'm a very credible person. I'm retired law enforcement, and my son and I witnessed a craft over our property, and it actually made my son go join the Air Force to study. He's studying now to be a pilot because he's on a journey and wants answers. So.
Okay, well, you keep in touch with us.
I will keep in touch with you and keep up the good job, both of you.
Great. Richard, I only got a couple minutes left. Why don't you tell us again about the conferences and the work you've been doing?
If people want to see close up and personal these artifacts, there's two ways to do it. We have the DVD of Ohio State. You call 1-877-345-6222. Some very nice people are standing by all night now to take your calls so you can get to see this stuff in your own home and run it for your friends and neighbors and send copies to Mike Griffin and say, what about this? When are you going to tell us the truth? The other opportunity to see this is when Steve Troy and I present this astonishing lunar evidence, including what I call the smoking gun evidence, at the Joshua Tree Retreat for 4 days on the Columbus Day weekend this coming October. And their operators, nice folks, standing by there tonight at 1-800-900-7030. And if you have web access, you can get all these numbers on the web. If you don't and you're in D.C., you can get them from Channel 49, TV 49. And I certainly thank you, George, for making it possible to initiate this political campaign and try to find out what happened to our priceless Apollo heritage after 37 years.
Well, Richard, like you, I just want answers. Whether Stephen Greer has the great sources or not, or you, I just want the answers. That's our job here.
We all want answers. The question is, how do we get them? And I don't think without this audience, without this incredible Coast audience, we have a ghost of a chance, pun intended. But with this audience, we've done it before. I think if enough people email Mike Griffin tomorrow morning when those TV cameras show up and say, Mike, where are our tapes? He will have a very thoughtful perspective on what he has to do to go and find our data.
Let's just hope he doesn't say, what tapes?
Well, we'll take it to the next level if that happens.
Then we have a real problem. Richard, take care, keep in touch, and look forward to seeing this picture you're going to unveil at Joshua Tree.
You are going to absolutely, you'll have an exquisite time.
Can I get a little preview of it before the event?
Maybe.
All right.
If you ask just right.
I just have. See you later.
Okay, good night.
That's Richard C. Hoagland. Well, that's wrapping it up for tonight. We've got a great week of shows for you here on Coast to Coast AM. For Steve Carr, Dan Galante, Tom Dan Heiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Wadasur, Ross Mitchell, Ian Punnett, and Art Bell, I'm George Noory. Somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.